Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jarosław Parzuchowski. I represent Pomeranian cluster ICT Interism, as Krzysztof said, one of the key national clusters. And I'm the moderator during this second panel during our conference. I deal in my daily work with ICT technologies. And in today's panel, entitled Digital Transformation of the Economy as a Competitiveness Requirement, we're going to talk about digitization. So this is something that we are observing, which is happening and developing quickly before our very eyes. More and more companies are becoming digitized. We see new digital models. We see dynamic change in technology. We see new professions emerging. This fast development creates many challenges for business. Can clusters play, or should clusters play, the key role in this area? This is going to be the subject of our discussion in the panel. Let's start with inviting and introducing our panelists. I'd like to invite Dr. Agata Vancio, Deputy Director of Innovation and Industrial Policy at the Ministry of Development and Technology. It was difficult to say the whole thing on one breath. Good morning, Madam Director. What can we say? We all know Madam Director. She's the good spirit for all of the clusters, supports our development very strongly. I'm very happy that you've accepted our invitation. I'd like to invite Professor Katarzyna Cheba, professor from West Pomeranian University of Technology in Szczecin, but at the moment head of the Council for Discipline, Economy and Finance at the Economy Department of that university, member of the board of Lubuskie Metal Cluster, with whom you've been working for 10 years now. So we have the ministry, we have the cluster represented, and time for large-scale business. We have with us Ryszard Hordyński, Director of Strategy and Communication at Huawei Polska. He's had 20 years of experience, acquired both in project implementation but also in management structures. He worked for consulting companies, for telecoms, for IT companies, including government administration. Now, since this is a technology panel and we have a representative of a major technology company, we couldn't connect in any other way than online. Our conference is also technologically advanced. The next guests, I'd like to invite to the stage Mr. Piotr Wojciechowski of Bydgoszcz Industrial Cluster. I said mistakenly Lubuski, of course Bydgoszcz, normally related to tools and fabrication industry, one of the key clusters involved in many international projects. I'd like to invite Sebastian Zimnol. He is head of our quantum cybersecurity group and creator of multiple innovative startup initiatives in cybersecurity. I'd like to invite to the stage Mr. Łukasz Górecki. He's director of Silesia Automotive and Advanced Manufacturing Cluster. It's in the Katowice Special Economic Zone. Again, it's a national key cluster. So we have all of our panelists present. I'm looking at the empty chair, but that indeed is a virtual guest online. So we have everyone. Looking at the organizers and checking with them. We're going to display holograms in that chair. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you for having this meeting in Gdansk today. And the first round of questions is going to be a bit of a warm-up. So it's an introductory question. And the first question goes to all of you. Since we're going to discuss digital transformation, which is the necessary requirement for being competitive, In your opinion, what are the benefits from digital transformation for the economy in the context of making companies more competitive, but also making the country more competitive? Madam Director. Thank you very much. Well, indeed, it's such a broad question that I wouldn't want to take up too much time, and I'll leave something for my colleagues to say, so I'll try to be brief. I think the benefits, and I'll start with companies because this is the salt and foundation of the economy and its competitiveness. When we look functionally at how a company is organized, how business is organized, the very first thing that is associated with a company being competitive is the constant need to improve efficiency. Efficiency in using resource, efficiency and effectiveness of pursuing processes in organizing the company, but also the productivity and efficiency of the employees. So these are things that are happening inside the organization, and that's one thing. So it's not just something that improves the competition, but also allows companies to maintain the position. In terms of work organization, COVID demonstrated this. Using new tools was a condition for maintaining operations, and it was thanks to digital tools. The second issue is the product and services offering. So what the way the company is positioning itself on the market, including cooperation with various partners, and business models. And that's last subject, maybe the most disruptive. So it also has the strongest transformative potential. And this is one of the most common reasons why companies not only can, but should transform and change. Because these models, the models of large digital platforms from large technological companies, enforce digital transformation, without which companies will disappear from the market. Also, consumers enforce certain changes. If research shows that 70 or 80% young consumers, bank clients, only use technological channels, then the bank cannot avoid digitization. And that's where I put a full stop for now. Thank you very much. Łukasz. Indeed, there are many benefits from digital transformation, but I'll just focus on what our cluster does, which is automotive. I'll just show what digital transformation can bring to the automotive branch. This is a very important industry. It's 8% GDP and 400,000 jobs. So this industry affects the entire domestic economy. And this is a very demanding industry. The processes in this industry have been optimized for years, and the new technologies we are dealing with in digital transformation provide rapid increase in effectiveness of those companies. Even though they have been optimized using various methods, Kaizen and other technologies, to the limit, the new technologies give them the possibility to further improve their planning and production, reducing costs. And we have to realize that some of those companies, mainly with foreign capital, are here because it's profitable to produce here in Poland. And their investment in new technologies ensures that they will be able to continue keeping their operations in Poland. In addition to the effectiveness of planning and producing, it's also the ability to maintain ever-increasing quality requirements, constantly monitoring the production processes, but also meeting the environmental requirements, so meeting the requirements of green transformation. Also, these include new technologies which respond to current problems, the problems on the labor market with insufficient resource available. So new technologies optimize certain processes and replace the most difficult jobs by automation and resolve the problem with shortage of labor. Thank you. Now, Piotr, a similar profile of your cluster, so you're also an industrial cluster. Do you face similar challenges? Good afternoon. It's difficult to follow, Łukasz, because I would really, and Madam Director, I would really repeat what they said, but I will add two more things. Digital transformation is also the ability to acquire new markets. We can operate much more broadly, not limited to the neighborhood. Now the borders globally are disappearing. The second thing I wanted to say is that it's very often an obligation for companies. SMEs that operate in the supply chain for automotive industry must be already operating at a certain level of digital advancement. Otherwise, they have to drop out of the market and will be unable to work with the biggest player. Madam Professor, I will put it slightly differently because I was thinking about the question. Is it even at all possible that we might not digitize? I imagine in the 1990s, my parents attended a debate and were wondering, is it possible to not use a computer, or is internet a sort of thing that will actually be functioning or maybe not? I remember a slogan that if you're not online on the internet, then your company doesn't exist. I think digitization is a similar solution. When I put a question into ChatGPT about the benefits from digitization, all of those issues that you've mentioned were mentioned by the robot. So I think this is what we'll be talking about, and I think this is just a natural stage of our development. We have a certain situation we're in, and we can ask what else if not digitization. I'm a little afraid to ask that question to Sebastian, because if not digitization, then your business model would not exist at all. That is a hard question in terms of an absolutely new startup, because we're dealing quantum cybersecurity technology. We're the only company in Europe that does this. We created products in terms of quantum technology from the point of view of digitization in such startup as ourselves. We have to realize that these are all the items that were discussed here are very pertinent, but we shouldn't forget two things. In the past 25 or 30 years, we've developed so fast as never in a universe as never before. So what's going to happen in the next 20 years? We have to start talking about entirely new technologies such as quantum computer, artificial intelligence, and so on. From our point of view, digitization helps us as a startup to do two things. First of all, is to find new innovation. That's something very important, but also provides us access to investors, because today we see that investments that are done are not in a new machine for picking potatoes, but in new technologies that are now being designed. Yesterday I read that in Germany, a new startup which appeared as a competition to ChatGPT received 500 million euro funding in the first round of CRT. That's amazing. So this is a potential for development. And we can see that if we receive these investors, young companies, and somebody believes in them, as Stanisław Schultke said, we're taking a bit of a risk because we're investing in entirely new technologies which will have practical application in the future, in 5 to 10 years. Then we believe in what's happening in the market. We have to believe. We have to believe that what we do is going to be necessary. Thank you very much. Just to heat up the atmosphere a little bit, I'd like to ask the second question again to all of you. Maybe a little shorter, because we've already said a lot about this, but which sectors, in your opinion, are most exposed to the increased competitiveness or the need to change their business models because we are changing dynamically and digitizing? Madam Director. Well, I will allow myself to refer to what my predecessor said. You can't escape digitization, but I'm thinking about the sort of questions we should be asking ourselves. Considering that digitization is just a tool rather than an end in itself, then the question about the effectiveness of digital transformation is not a banal question. I keep thinking about various research reports. In Poland, the proportions would be a little different, but in the US, companies are aware that they should be digitizing, and about 70% started digital transformation in one way or another. But in terms of translating transformation to positive business results, it's only 20%. This shows that this is a necessary process, but very difficult at the same time. Coming back to your question about sectors, that is difficult. If you were to show us a catalogue of industries, we could probably, let's look in the crystal ball. I think that in every sector, irrespective of whether it's services or industry, digitization can be both an opportunity and a threat. Even in traditional sectors or sectors perceived as traditional, such as farming, digitization and automation can become a game changer. The issue of approach and how transformation is done. In terms of recent trends and AI applications, for instance, there are industries which are more susceptible to the application of these new technology. We're talking here about medical, generally speaking. For instance, using AI in looking for new medicines, shortening the development of medicine. So this is a susceptible industry. Transport, logistics, e-commerce. I'll leave some space to the others, but these are the ones that come to my mind as the most sensitive. You mentioned a few threads, because when we work with companies on daily basis, we are often impressed sometimes by situations where production companies approach us because they want to work with ICT companies, because the producers, the manufacturers, they want to improve their processes, they want to be more competitive, they are often a source of inspiration. When we look at the application of AI, we meet on daily basis that for the medical sectors it's an excellent source for optimization of processes, not decision making, as it is often presented, but to support decision making. Łukasz, which sectors? To continue what Madam Director said, also in the context of automotive industry, the car is changing. We're soon going to be dealing with an iPhone on wheels, and there will definitely be threat for traditional manufacturers of traditional components, versus an opportunity for startups and companies that develop the new technologies, because the value of digital technologies in a car versus traditional technologies is going to dramatically change. The digitization trend is also related to the drive towards zero emissions. Vehicles go towards zero emission vehicles. Now, when we look at competitiveness, we can see what's happening in Asia and China. So in Asia, in countries such as China and Korea, where we have a great advantage, and they have a great advantage compared to European companies, where automotive is based on internal combustion engine, the traditional one.
Obviously, as a representative of a traditional industry, I need to say that the traditional industries, on the one hand, are going to have the most difficult situation, as they are totally in different positions than the IT. And on the other hand, so if we meet those requirements, some new possibilities can open. Of course, it is not going to be simple and easy. But also, I wouldn't like to concentrate on industries, but rather on the size of companies. It is more difficult for SMEs, not to mention the startups. So this is the need they are set up for. But in small and medium-sized enterprises, we have the largest volume of work we need to do. But let me also note another thing, which was also mentioned by Madam Director, as we should not force people to digitize. It doesn't make sense sometimes in some situations, as not all the things can be and should be digitized. And on the other hand, we should not forget that digitization is some kind of path or way, not the goal, not the target, as without tangible industries, we will be missing things to digitize, and we will only have the IT industry. So we also need to think about those hard industries, and we need to take care of them. And also the metal cluster. I'm also looking at the digitization as a very useful tool for all industries, whatever the industry is, as digitization can be used in industries. And it is also to have the perception on a level up than industry, as we can process and gather a lot of data, and the data can be processed in different ways. We can recognize some models we understand. We can confirm the patterns. We can look for new patterns that we can imagine that they may exist, and this can be important for the economy. We have been also saying that there are some multinational approaches like medicine. So this digitization is not assigned to one industry. And the metal industry, it is very difficult to digitize processes which are not repeatable. So we are prepared to apply software in processes which are repeatable, and but for small serial manufacturing processes, it is much more difficult. I'm not an economist, and I'm not an expert in metal production, but what my colleagues in the clusters say, it is a challenge that digitization should also be, we should be able to apply digitization to those anomalies. And this is another way of thinking about economy and about digitization, as digitization sometimes will not be useful if we want to forecast developments as much as it is applicable to deviating from the patterns. And cybersecurity now, and also in the context, 20% of business successes, it is that in most cases companies are lacking digital transition strategies, and they believe that the digitization is going to solve all their problems. So sometimes it happens that companies start their digitization and they do not have strategies. They just buy tablets for their employees, and they require their employees not to use paper. So this is where they will face some challenges of digitization in the business context. So this is the problem. And in terms of cybersecurity, of course, we need different regulations. I know that the Chinese have the agenda of quantum cybersecurity. They did it 7 years ago. Americans also have the new law that all new companies need to be quantum safe secure, and we are now only thinking about it in Europe. So all the technological companies need to have some regulations available, and the companies need to take the risk without having all those regulations in place. And this is some kind of threat from our perspective, and we need to take big leaps forward to transfer quantum cybersecurity into what in fact we need. The regulations will be discussed further in a minute from now, but my question is now, as you can see, digitization is not going to replace the traditional formula of meetings face-to-face, as we are not having connection with our distant participants. And sometimes there is an opinion that lawmaking is not catching up the new technologies, and the new technologies are capable of finding some gaps, and there are some startups established. Madam Director, from the perspective of the Ministry of Development and Technology, how can you support digital transformation of companies. Are you working on some kind of programs which would approximate digitization? Let me start from something else, not the regulations. Let me start by saying that the moment we are in now, it is a moment where we have EDIF as a center of our attention. It is due to the fact that for those of you who do not know it, I hope it is not many of you, as for 2 years this has been a part of our agenda. This is a European network of digital innovation hubs. In Poland, 11 hubs or consortia have this status, but we treat this as the start of our way, our pathway. And some of the consortia, and shortly, I hope, majority or all of them will sign the contracts and they will start working quickly. And as the ministry, in the cooperation with the Foundation of Platform of Industrial Future, we want to cooperate with those hubs to develop a realistic network, and not only the hubs I have mentioned will be included, will be involved, but also others. And so we want to gather all the hubs, innovative hubs, which have digitization and digitization of their core activity, particularly which if they want to help SMEs. And we want to concentrate on developing of a platform with a catalog of services which would help businesses to tame or to channel their needs, smartly channel their needs towards the hubs where they are needed. And also we hope that we will be able to facilitate communication among the needs, as some EDIFs have a dozen or so members creating consortiums. So the need for a strict coordination and cooperation is clear for us. And so we also want to work on standardization of services which are provided by those entities to businesses, but we want to standardize customer service, and this is very important from a perspective of businesses. And our activities need to be concentrated more on. We want to be just a facilitator or a supporter. We want to help to develop a network, as the financial matters to a large extent are guaranteed by other programs like a Ministry of Funds, of Regional Development and other organizations. So there are quite a lot of tools available, and we have been constantly screening the situation, and we are looking for some gaps to bridge these gaps with our activities. And what we are also trying to do, shortly we will start a call for innovation centers, which used to be called accreditation system. And our goal of the accreditation under the new system will be thematic specialization of the hubs. And one of the 3 areas is digitization, green also, as it was discussed in the last panel. And these hubs will have a program started at the Polish Enterprise Development Agency. This will be for networking or cooperation with EDIF in Poland or with EDIF in Europe. And as for other activities outside of the digital innovation hubs, for some time we have been strongly having on our radar AI, as it is clear that this is a technology with a great transformation potential. And combined with our strong belief that education and competences change businesses and change the world, we started some time ago a pilot project. It is called AI for Youth. That's together with Intel. This is a global project which was adjusted a little bit to our needs. It is intended for secondary school students. In the first part of the program, they learn how to code, how to develop software, and they also learn how to use the knowledge to solve social economic challenges. And they need to be inspired by UN goals. And we want to continue in a little bit different approach, and we want to transfer this to another level, another stage, and we want to also intend this program to be used by SMIs, and we want to develop this. Probably we will develop some training, some advisory projects, and we want to take care of AI, and we will be also observing what other institutions in the ecosystem offer, and we will be also trying to look at gaps which need to be taken care of. And thank you for mentioning of European hubs of digital innovation. We are strongly involved in this process, as we have been co-creating here in Pomeranian region one of Polish ABICs. And now let me give the floor to Piotr, and you will be able to talk about EDIC, and you also have an opportunity to talk about the big money which can be spent for digital transformation of businesses and institutions. We have this national input into the budgets, and so what is that going to be based on? Could you please tell us a little bit about those one-stop shops? I will be very happy to know your perspective with the subsidies. As a cluster, we are a member of the IoT Nuti Poland, which is headed by the Toruń Regional Development Agency. We have been in the subsidy procedure, but we have not been offered the subsidy as we have too little money. So we are CEO Excellence. So we need to look for others and finance sources. It has some advantages and disadvantages. Advantages, and we will not have to complete all those ratios, and we will not have to achieve all those ratios which are required. As for the idea itself, as you said, it is going to be a one-stop shop. We are operating on a little bit different level than the ministry, as our offer goes, first of all, to small and medium-sized enterprises. Of course, also bigger companies can use us, and that's going to be a location where companies can apply if they have needs in terms of advisory, trainings, or conferences, and that's what we have been doing. And our EDIC, it is a couple of entities. These are business surrounding companies, these are universities, these are also businesses. So we have been offering a full range of soft competences and services, but also we have been informing about the sources of finance and what we failed without the finance subsidies. It is purchase of the infrastructure to run the pre-implementation phase, and hopefully in the next step we will manage to achieve that as well. And I think it is also important for our participants, also for the online participants, that we need to emphasize that nationwide this network of digital innovation hubs has been started and is about to be started. We are not sure when exactly it is going to start, but in the next months to come, companies, businesses will have an opportunity to get those support before invest. So you will be able to try some solutions, try out some solutions. So business people, please use your browsers and type in European Hubs of Digital Innovation, and the sooner you familiarize yourself in that, the more chances for you to use. So those EDICs are in operation education, and of course their services are not subsidized, but they provide their services, and some of these services are free of charge as they are subsidized from other sources, or they have commercial services available. So you are invited, feel free to use their services. And also working in our EDI, we diagnosed that very important it is to provide services in the aspect of building competences. Madam Professor, what are the key competences and skills employees need to acquire, get efficiently to be able to implement processes of digital transformation? These can be divided into two groups. So some of them are technical, technological, etc. And we are aware that these skills need to be acquired, and we are missing engineers and experts who can operate in this area. And we have been talking also that there is a group of competences which are called soft competences, and sometimes we call them competences. In English, they are called skills. So this is in the Polish language. We are lacking a good word, as skills and competences are different, and in Polish we do not have a good division between these two. And what have we learned over those years? We have learned how to recognize some patterns. We know more or less that the things can be described applying some models, and we have been developing models. We have been creating models. So the standard behaviors have been developed, but we are lacking some skills of digital economy, like managing of dispersed team, as we all have been in some dispersed teams, and the awareness of what environmental designing is in connection to digitization and the sustainable transformation, as this is more broader approach, and all these things are interrelated. And very frequently we have been perceiving those processes from the perspective of one business, as in fact environmental designing, it is operating with the involvement of a larger number of businesses, and we need to find experts who will be able to understand this, and they will have to be able to recognize new trends. And when a process is environmentally friendly designed, it is only then when the supplier is very close to our location to minimize the delivery costs. Or what are we doing today in this panel? If we look at ourselves, all of us are looking to some extent, but also browsing our phones. Probably we will also have the skill of drawing attention. We probably will need people who will be able to do that. There are plenty of things which are difficult to recognize now, but if we consider, or if we think like in economic University of Economy, not only knowledge, but probably we should all, as knowledge is easily available at the fingertip. Once I needed to memorize all those formulas, statistical formulas, my students now only need to know where to find these formulas. Probably we need to teach them other things which are next to this. And also, let me say that this recognition and forecasting some trends, not based on some regularities. So machines can do that for us, but being able to forecast future based on some individual events like COVID. But we also had Fukushima, and the Japanese were saying that their supply chains were broken. They had a governmental program in place. On the 10% of stocks needed to be kept in companies. They knew that, but they were not very accurate about that. And 400 companies were directly affected by this disaster. A couple of thousands collapsed, and we knew all that, but we did not adjust it to our reality and to COVID. Are our universities ready for looking for new competences? They are not ready. They know that knowledge is being provided and the young people want to use the knowledge at any point in time. So they don't want to learn from 9 to 10, from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. And we need to shift, we need to change, and we need to know that how to, and we need to, as this recorded knowledge, like films, recording. So this is also knowledge, and doesn't have to be provided to people, as this is not what people are looking for. So it may be that if they are oversaturated with this electronic knowledge transfer, they will be probably looking for a contact with living humans, and those electronic platforms are now more useful for them, and digitization also needs to be applied in the universities, but also need to be part of awareness of people at the universities.
Now, entering our cluster community a little bit, because we're talking here about digital transformation and becoming competitive. The cluster Silesia, automotive and advanced manufacturing. When you first spoke, the companies of the cluster are fully aware that they need to undergo digital transformation to remain competitive or to be more competitive. But where is the role of the cluster in all this? Are you trying to be a facilitator? Do you monitor those processes? Do you train? You're trying. I think that we're doing it quite well, not only in our cluster, but many clusters are becoming involved. At least 2 are involved as hubs of digital transformation, so they support these processes of transformation. Since we work directly with the automotive industry, in response to your first question, since that industry requires constant optimization and absorbs new technologies, for the needs of this industry, we first want to show this industry what technologies are already available. That's why our cluster has such a complicated name, because under the cluster we also have integrators and suppliers of those new solutions functioning in the cluster. So we're facilitating the delivery of new technologies to the automotive industry. We organize workshops where we demonstrate various problems, or we facilitate exchange of experiences between companies about what works and what was implemented successfully and what was not. We're also the founder and leader of a consortium, but we more focus on companies from outside the cluster, the SMEs, which are outside, beyond our reach, mainly not in the automotive industry. What about this model where the first step that a company would be taking to transform digitally, would that be approaching the cluster coordinator? Or, in your opinion, I'm all calling you Mr. and Madam, but I'm trying to maintain that form. Would the cluster be the first natural address to which the companies and participants go to looking for help? Yes, because we are a neutral partner designed to show various solutions. Companies are often disappointed with the approach of suppliers who are often keen on selling a particular solution. Small wonder, it's business for them, but we want to show them the entire spectrum of available solutions, and we leave the decision with the company. Also, thanks to the funding for key national clusters, we've improved the operation in this area. We prepared a mobile center for demonstrating 4.0 solutions, so we can save the time of the companies, and we can deliver some of our demonstration activities in their location, in their plant. Well, we talk a lot about the benefits. We are obviously also aware of the threats related to security. I'm looking at Sebastian. What do you think? Where are the biggest gaps that our companies are suffering from? What is the level of ignorance of possible threats related to digitization? Well, let's start with 2 events that had a tremendous effect on digital transformation and on the awareness of danger. The first one was COVID, when all of the companies suddenly digitized their processes and sent their employees home, and suddenly everybody was successfully able to work online. That's one. The second thing is war in Ukraine, which absolutely changed everything. At this point in time, with this level of digitization and with these threats, because we are in the state of cyber war, which we do not see, and that's the worst. And we're losing millions and billions of euros every year because of threats, because companies are hacked. This is where the entire problem starts, because the awareness came later. It came after a certain time. Companies that are hacked and lost data, they lost information, they lost system. We only see the tip of the iceberg. We really don't know how many were hacked. Are they ashamed? That's one of the things. They're ashamed. They don't want to lose their business contacts with other companies. The best example is 8 weeks ago, the entire Volkswagen in Germany is being down for 45 days. They've been completely hacked. 1/3 of the company has been brought back to function. Huge company, fully aware about the risks for cyber attacks, yet vulnerable. So we have to create, for sure, new way of thinking. And when we connect digital transformation, a combination of AI, quantum computers, which will be automatically trying to hack companies, it won't be done by people. It will be done by machines that will be looking for new ways of hacking. Then we have to start using new technologies to protect ourselves. So we entered the market and started thinking about how we can do this. But in all this, there are other items before we come in. These are cybersecurity audits. This is the development of awareness in the company, educating your employees. Lots of major points which have to be done today. We have tremendous scope for training, even online. Our employees, they don't have to sit in the company and learn about this. All you have to do is to make a platform available to them where they can learn, where they can demonstrate their competence. Best example of how easy it is to hack a company. Before we enter with our quantum technology, we carry out audits. We audit companies. So the best, easiest example is to leave a pen drive, a parking stick in the parking lot for the employees, and put in there the remunerations. In 98% of companies that we worked with, an employee picked up the pen drive, the data stick, and when there was open USB ports, it stuck it in. We had access to all company data. This is very easy hacking. It's not even external. It's a very simple thing, a planted pen drive. We have to, therefore, start with building awareness. Once we've done that, we can then talk for providing higher levels of security. Yeah, so we can have the best infrastructure, but the human being is the weakest link. But following on with this subject, because it's so important, how do you start education? Companies already have significant awareness, but they have one problem: spending money on cybersecurity. We can see that the scope of our activities as a company is mainly large companies, governments, and military. Today, NATO created the program called Diana, where they implement or begin implementing cybersecurity and communications quantum technology. Americans changed the law, according to which all EU or US government agencies, including military, have to provide quantum security as of next year. So companies have to realize that they have to start investing significantly more money in cybersecurity, because the more digitization, the more cyber threats, and the more money needs to be spent on security. Well, it's worth mentioning that cybersecurity is a process. It's not that we are now protected and we can go to sleep. Just from our local area, we've had such phishing attacks which were so well fine-tuned that we were sometimes thinking together whether that email was real or not, and we'd have to make a phone call to verify. So the thought that cybersecurity needs to be treated as an ongoing process is of key importance, I think, and it's great that you're dealing with it. Coming back to regulations, because, Madam Director, we're supposed to talk about it. Well, coming back to cybersecurity for a moment yet, failure to invest in cybersecurity is actually very expensive, because American research shows that an average cost of cracking of patching up a data leak from your company is $4 million. That's very true. But today, when we meet SMEs in Poland, I'm not even talking foreign, but medium-sized Polish companies, you always hear one thing. Who's going to attack the little Kowalski company? That's the problem. Even if we have good technology, good products, everybody says, so far nothing has happened. And until anything happens, I don't need that. When we say that there will be quantum computers in 5 to 10 years, which will absolutely crack today's security codes, because today we operate using RSA or IRS, and they can be cracked in 5 to 10 years by quantum computers. It'll be something that will change the whole world. Today, everything we do, everyone has a tablet, everyone has a smartphone, everything we do there is encoded by basic mathematical codes. When these codes are cracked, we're naked. So we'll start by being completely naked. Nobody thinks about it. Another aspect is something that's called says today, encrypt tomorrow. Americans have been collecting for 25 years now all internet data, which is called in the what I call Utah data center. There's a huge disk on which everything that's been happening in the world is recorded. They're not able to read it yet. They're not able to crack the codes, but the moment the quantum computer is introduced, when President Macron with Putin during the war in Ukraine will be talking, Americans will know what they talked about. So we have to think about what will happen in the future with data encoding. If we can secure ourselves now against something that may happen in the future, that's when we show foresight. It's true that anything that goes into internet stays forever. Okay, let me go back to the law and their legal regulations. In the context of technology, this is a difficult subject. We often hear a statement that law does not catch up with modern technologies. But isn't it the nature of the law? By nature, the law is reactive. It regulates, by nature, things that occur, and it's trying to follow it rather than going ahead of reality. So the law responds to challenges as new technologies are developed. For instance, in autonomous vehicles or autonomous devices, gradually new problems occur, and the law attempts to meet those challenges. Contrary to what might seem, lawmakers and lawyers don't have an easy task, because they have to find a middle way between the general and the specific. The general, because they need to design the law in a way that the provisions cover potential technologies that don't exist yet. On the other hand, the rights and interests of consumers and other entities have to be protected by the law. Finding that golden mean is very difficult. But the role of the law and regulations is very important. I think especially in the context of artificial intelligence, it's very visible in this context. For quite some time, regulation about AI has been discussed by the European Commission, the AI Act, which is trying to somehow control, let's say, this technology, or control the fear related to this technology. And various categories of AI technologies are mentioned. There's a catalogue of technologies which must not, under any circumstances, be developed, such as, for instance, reading and using emotions in the places of education, in places of work, in the penal system, so in court, or related to biometric data. But I think from the point of view of how positive the positive role that the law may play is that it builds a certain level of trust to new technologies. If we have a law which to some degree protects the interests of the consumers and the users, then that law can at the same time play the role of a bridge that builds trust of certain technology. In case of AI, that will be very needed. The bans on certain activities, in some sense, yes, the law limits whether it should do it or not. It's subject to discussion, but at least in some areas, it should limit the development of innovation. I don't think any of us would prefer decision-making processes in weapons of mass destruction to be completely autonomous and automated. So there are areas in which the law should and must regulate the activities. What Beata said during the earlier panel, which is the regulatory sandbox, there are certain mechanisms that allow for experimentation. For instance, in green technologies, it will be necessary because the Net Zero Act, which is now under discussion in the European Commission, there will be one sandbox which will not be voluntary but will be obligatory. So we as administration which will have to learn it. And it has to be done in participation. Although it's not easy. Last year, I had a phone call from a gentleman who touched on a very important thread in building and construction, that the law is too limiting and we have to change it. We wanted to look at this, but he never called us back. So we never had an opportunity to further discuss the subject with him. But regulatory sandbox is an area which we want and must look after and look at in the near future. And public administration, as you say, also must catch up with the process. Absolutely. If I can add something to this, maybe in some area this is correct, but for the past 25 years we have not regulated until today the social media. We've done nothing. Facebook and Google do what they want with us. In Europe, we can't touch them. We're trying to regulate them by imposing penalties which are laughable for them. For $100 million, they laugh in our faces. If we regulate it in the same way or other aspects, such as artificial intelligence, which Metaverse and Google are now dealing with, we're not going to regulate that. There's going to be a beautiful conference soon here in Gdansk with Royal Association about new technologies. And last year we talked about the same thing. The law must first change its approach completely to what we've done, rather than exist and based on what we have now. You're right that the law is reactive. I think it's wrong. We have to change our way of thinking for creating new law, because if we do, we will never be able to regulate new technologies. Well, I think you touched on a very important problem. The fact that technological progress is global in nature. And in this respect, the law should also be global. And to achieve agreement on certain subjects is very difficult. All of us who pursued projects in consortia, we all know how difficult it is to proceed a contract when there is more than a handful of partners in a single legal system, not even globally. We're slowly going towards the end. I'd like to approach Madam Professor, because you have competences from the world of academia, but you also have experience in clusters. Perhaps it is the clusters that should be the lamp of education, the one-stop shop for training in digitization and digital transformation. There can only be one answer. We've already heard a slogan in the context of energy transformation and green transition, something that has been fashionable, but it's taking on a new meaning, which is co-creation. Scientists have been trying to name various processes that are occurring in the economy. So clusters were created on the bottom-up concept. So grassroots initiatives. We also had discussions whether we're creating value for the customer or with the customer. We concluded that with the customer provides better value. We had various ideas for how to create innovation, user-driver innovation, for instance. Now we're at the stage of co-creation. So each of us has to become an actor. We're not stakeholders. Digitization should not be for someone, but we should be active actors of digitization. And you can see this already in sustainable transition, because if Mr. Kowalski or Mr. Nowak or Mr. Smith fails to put paper in the right basket, then the transformation, the energy transformation, despite great technology, is not going to happen. Same is with envelopes with a plastic window. But somebody has to pull that plastic window off of the envelope and put it in a different waste basket. To answer your question more directly, co-creation is part of the DNA of clusters. It's hardwired in this DNA. So we've learned to work together because we started in clusters with soft skills. The technology projects are the result of us talking together and learning to work together. We talked about competition, etc. So clusters are very well positioned to co-create this process. Ladies and gentlemen, we're approaching the end, but it's not the end yet, because I would like for us to imagine that we have a crystal ball, and when we talk about, we more talk about the benefits. We talked about the threats a little bit, but let's have a round of answers to the following question. Which 3 key areas of the economy, in your opinion, will be digitized in the nearest future?
It is a difficult question. It's because it is not the case that industry is a uniform aggregate and you can affect it very easily. It's the same with the branches of industries, as there are some businesses which are perfectly digitized and also others which are at the very beginning of the pathway or are totally unaware. It may be let me say it like, let me answer another question instead of that. So where the biggest needs are in terms of the Polish economy for digitization? An absolute number one, I think, is generally it is industry, and let me elaborate on that. It is because we are one of the most industrialized countries in Europe in terms of the volume of production and also the number of employees. We are ranked 3rd or 4th. And as for digitization, automation, and robotization of processes, of manufacturing processes, unfortunately, we are ranked as one of the last ones. Of course, there are some industries which are doing better. One of those industries is automotive industry for some reasons. The reasons which I am not going to discuss here, but I think that one of the sectors we for some time have been concentrating on of key importance in terms of the volume of manufacturing and also advantages in export is furniture industry, and they are having more and more problems. The reasons are complex here, but digitization and robotization so this is one of the least robotized industry, and the Polish Agency for Enterprise Development started a pilot project, and we are still waiting for the results of that pilot project. But we need to concentrate on digitization and automation of the industries which are of key role for our economic economy, and the furniture industry and the food industry are those. And it would be difficult for me either to show one or two industries, as digitization is important for all the sectors. But I think I'd like to mention three technologies which are going to affect the transformation the most. It is 5G, quantum computers, and artificial intelligence, as these have not been fully implemented, and we are halfway of the transformation, and a lot of things are difficult to imagine even. And I was afraid that only my imagination was poor, but it looks like I'm not the only one. I'm not going to give you any particular industries. So only recently I have not been imagining to buy a car online, and now it is very common or popular. So I'm not going to list an industry, but let me comment the awareness. As a country, we have a lot to do to build awareness in small and medium-sized enterprises, awareness of digitization. I fully agree with what you said, sir, as small and medium-sized enterprises are lacking knowledge on what the things look like. And I have only recently heard an example. They visited some Asian customers, visited one of the businesses, and only 15 minutes was enough for them to connect to the connection to the network to steal all the drawings of all their products. So this lacking of awareness is very risky and very expensive, can be very expensive. So we have a lot to do here. I'd like to say, I'd like to be able to say that digitization will be fast, and I want it to happen in all those industries which are important for humans, particularly in the aging society. I'd like to have more digitalization in the healthcare industry, as business is also going to help here if the technologies are profitable, innovatory. So of course they will be developing information about patients. This information should be faster, digitized, and the access to this primary healthcare information on where the healthcare is available, but also online treatment, basic information should be available. As a COVID speeded up some processes, but still we have a lot to do, a lot can be done, and this is what I would like to have as that's the job we need to do within the next 50 years. And from the perspective of the inquiries we get as cybersecurity company, we need to protect data and resources. As the digitization of the healthcare industry, it is very important to digitize this industry. Another sector, it is a critical infrastructure and power generation. It is strongly digitizing, and all the data is now transformed significantly. And that's also governance and business. Also the military things. We have been cooperating with NATO, with the Polish Ministry of Defense, and data exchange. So this is very important. So these are the scopes, the ranges of data which are being strongly digitized. And military. Recently, I have been talking to one of the colonels, and he once said that so in the past, we were protecting lands, waters, and today we need to protect space and cybersecurity. So this is what we need to constantly remember, how the bit saturation of the technology is now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The stationary formula seem to be more efficient. Looks like Agata Wancio, Łukasz Górecki, Piotr Wojciechowski, Professor Katarzyna Heba, Sebastian Zimnoch. Thank you very much.
Fundusze europejskie w latach 2014-2020 to m.in. sukcesy polskich przedsiębiorców, wsparcie dla jednostek samorządu terytorialnego oraz dynamiczny rozwój ośrodków innowacji poprzez wydarzenia, szkolenia, finansowanie, edukację oraz wspieranie współpracy przedsiębiorstw. Lata 2014-2022 to 13 tysięcy umów o dofinansowanie i 15,3 miliarda złotych przyznanego dofinansowania na terenie całej Polski. Nasi beneficjenci są bardzo pomysłowi. Wprowadzają na rynek np. innowacyjne dachowe wymienniki ciepła, dofinansowane z programu operacyjnego Polska Wschodnia. Skonstruowali innowacyjny szybowiec wyczynowy, dofinansowany z programu operacyjnego Inteligentny Rozwój. Wprowadzają też projekty doradcze, takie jak Sukcesja z sukcesem, dofinansowanie z programu operacyjnego Wiedza, Edukacja, Rozwój. Fundusze Europejskie 2021-2027 to nowa perspektywa finansowa. Jest ona kontynuacją programów z poprzedniej perspektywy i obejmuje Fundusze Europejskie dla Rozwoju Społecznego, Fundusze Europejskie dla Polski Wschodniej i Fundusze Europejskie dla Nowoczesnej Gospodarki. Fundusze Europejskie. Razem przed siebie!
Historia przemysłu to historia transformacji i napędzających ją wizjonerów. Oto śruba. Kiedyś musiał wykuć ją kowal, każdą z osobna. Setki i tysiące śrub. Nie było dwóch identycznych, więc w tamtym świecie każda maszyna była rękodziełem. Pięknym, ale mało efektywnym. Idea, że śruby można produkować maszynowo, narodziła się w głowie jednego człowieka. Standaryzacja części zamiennych rozpędziła rewolucję przemysłową. Bez standaryzacji nie byłoby przemysłu. Lampa naftowa, żarówka, nawet karabin maszynowy – to wszystko wynalazki pojedynczych geniuszy. W XIX wieku transformację przemysłową napędzali wizjonerzy. Nasi dziadkowie postrzegali przemysł z perspektywy linii montażowej. Praca rąk setek lub tysięcy ludzi, prosta optymalizacja i efekt skali tworzyły przemysłowe imperia. Komputeryzacja oraz automatyzacja zmieniły układ sił i sprawiły, że ludzie zaczęli pracować ramię w ramię z robotami, a wynalazczość przeniosła się do centrów R&D. Równocześnie dane stały się surowcem, takim jakim dotąd była ropa. Dziś niezwykle istotny jest elastyczny model produkcji, który pozwala szybko reagować na potrzeby klientów. Bez modernizacji parku maszynowego oraz infrastruktury ciężko jest utrzymać konkurencyjność na globalnym rynku. Zmienia się sposób myślenia o miejscu i roli pracowników, bo transformacja cyfrowa bardzo zależy od kompetencji oraz talentów ludzi. Wdrożenie rozwiązań przemysłu przyszłości wymaga szerokiego horyzontu i zdolności organizacyjnych. Przedsiębiorca XXI wieku musi wiedzieć, jak efektywnie i bez szkody dla środowiska wykorzystać zasoby, jak szkolić kadry i reagować w ciągle zmieniającym się otoczeniu biznesowym. Skorzystaj z wiedzy oraz doświadczenia ekspertów Platformy Przemysłu Przyszłości. Pomagamy w cyfrowej transformacji do przemysłu 4.0.
Planując ekspansję na nowych rynkach, potrzebujesz ekspertów, którzy pomogą Ci zminimalizować ryzyko. Potrzebujesz profesjonalistów, którzy od lat funkcjonują w lokalnej rzeczywistości i potrafią dotrzeć do właściwych osób. Skontaktuj się z nami. Polska Agencja Inwestycji i Handlu to stale rosnąca sieć biur na 6 kontynentach. Sprawdź, co możesz zyskać, bo sukces zaczyna się od informacji.
Cyfrowa platforma HR 4.0 to nowa usługa klastra SAM umożliwiająca przygotowanie i rozwój kompetencji kadr przyszłości, szczególnie w obszarze HR. Dostęp do bazy wiedzy. Wymianę dobrych praktyk ekspertów HR. Wsparcie pośrednictwa pracy i pozyskiwania talentów do organizacji. Współpracę biznes-edukacja. Skontaktuj się z nami w celu skorzystania z usługi. Film promocyjny dofinansowany ze środków Unii Europejskiej w ramach Europejskiego Funduszu Rozwoju Regionalnego.
MŚP Go Digital to nowa usługa klastra SAM dedykowana małym i średnim firmom produkcyjnym, której celem jest wsparcie w procesach transformacji cyfrowej i wdrażania rozwiązań przemysłu 4.0. Usługa podzielona została na 2 obszary. Część demonstracyjno-szkoleniową realizowaną przy użyciu mobilnego Centrum Demonstracyjnego Przemysłu 4.0 oraz wirtualnej fabryki cyfrowe MŚP oraz część doradczo-konsultingową, w ramach której ekspert przy współpracy z odbiorcą usługi stworzy plan transformacji cyfrowej przedsiębiorstwa. Skontaktuj się z nami w celu skorzystania z usługi. Film promocyjny dofinansowany ze środków Unii Europejskiej w ramach Europejskiego Funduszu Rozwoju Regionalnego.
Lubuskie to region pełen możliwości. Tutaj możesz odpoczywać, uczyć się i rozwijać swoją karierę. Tutaj znajdziesz atrakcje turystyczne, znakomite uczelnie i nowatorskie szpitale. Tutaj spotkasz się z ludźmi, którzy mają wizję i pasję.
Wyobraź sobie, że oglądasz film w otoczeniu największych gwiazd Hollywood, a godzinę później jesteś w samym środku obrazu Van Gogha. Już po chwili popijasz cydr w urokliwym sadzie, planując dalszą podróż. Wieczorem jesteś pod największą tężnią solną w Europie i smakujesz piernika z miasta, w którym żył ten, co wstrzymał słońce i ruszył ziemię. Potrafisz to sobie wyobrazić? Nie musisz. Wszystko to znajdziesz w Kujawsko-Pomorskiem.
ARP i Vehicles to nowa, a jednocześnie mogąca poszczycić się dużymi osiągnięciami marka w grupie kapitałowej ARP. Powołana do życia przez Agencję Rozwoju Przemysłu w 2020 roku kontynuuje projekt produkcji pierwszego polskiego zeroemisyjnego autobusu, wcześniej realizowany przez Rafako. Inwestycja ARP wpisuje się w światowe trendy rozwoju elektromobilności i bezemisyjnego transportu.
ARP i Vehicles jest to projekt realizowany w ramach rządowej strategii odpowiedzialnego rozwoju. Jest to jeden z 2 przyjętych kierunków rozwoju elektromobilności w Polsce. My odpowiadamy za ten projekt związany z e-busem, czyli elektrycznymi autobusami, zeroemisyjnymi autobusami. To autobus, który jest przede wszystkim autobusem polskim. Od początku został on zaprojektowany przez wielu polskich inżynierów. Zaprojektowany z myślą o tym, żeby jak najwięcej podzespołów było właśnie produkcji polskiej. Dlatego ponad 60% komponentów właśnie jest produkcji i pochodzenia polskiego. Spółka nie jest spółką mającą tak wielką tradycję jak chociażby polski Autosan, ale jesteśmy spółką bardzo dynamicznie rozwijającą się, która z roku na rok zwiększa swoje przychody. Nie możemy narzekać na brak zamówień. Sukcesy na targach czy w Brukseli, czy podwójny sukces w Kielcach, czy Plovdiv, czy Saloniki, to wszystko spowodowało, że portfel zamówień mamy wypełniony maksymalnie.
We wrześniu 2020 roku Agencja Rozwoju Przemysłu sfinalizowała umowę zakupu od Rafako spółki celowej Rafako e-Bus. Tym samym przejęła kontrolę nad projektem konstrukcyjno-technologicznym polegającym na opracowaniu, homologacji i rozpoczęciu seryjnej produkcji innowacyjnego autobusu elektrycznego. Dzisiaj projekt ten jest rozwijany z powodzeniem przez spółkę ARP i Vehicles.
Produkowany przez nas autobus to jedno z najbardziej innowacyjnych osiągnięć polskiej inżynierii ostatnich lat. W jego konstrukcji wykorzystaliśmy pionierskie rozwiązanie polegające na umieszczeniu baterii nie na dachu, ale pod podłogą pojazdu. Dzięki temu istotnie obniżono środek ciężkości autobusu, co z kolei wpływa na stabilność toru jazdy, bezpieczeństwo i łatwość prowadzenia. Pomimo baterii pod podłogą, autobus jest całkowicie niskopodłogowy na całej długości oraz w pełni przystosowany do przewozu osób niepełnosprawnych na wózkach. Nasze autobusy są także wyposażone w innowacyjne silniki w nowoczesnej technologii PMSM, które gwarantują niezawodność i doskonałe osiągi, przyspieszenie, moc, sprawność oraz niezawodność autobusu.
Zielony transport to przyszłość komunikacji. Agencja Rozwoju Przemysłu aktywnie działa na rzecz rozwoju elektromobilności w Polsce. Wybiegamy myślą do przodu i już teraz dostrzegamy potencjał tego rynku, korzyści biznesowe, znaczenie dla ochrony środowiska i rozwoju innowacyjności polskiej gospodarki. Stąd nasze inwestycje w sektor elektromobilności, a ich wzorcowym przykładem jest powołana przez nas spółka ARP e-Vehicles.
Powstanie spółki ARP e-Vehicles doskonale wpisuje się w potrzeby polskiego transportu publicznego. W ostatnich latach coraz więcej samorządów przechodzi na niskoemisyjny transport publiczny, a od 2025 roku w miastach powyżej 100 tysięcy mieszkańców autobusy spalinowe zostaną zastąpione elektrycznymi. Trend niskoemisyjnej komunikacji publicznej przekłada się na wzrost zamówień realizowanych dla samorządów przez ARP e-Vehicles.
Agencja Rozwoju Przemysłu jest naszym 100% właścicielem, dzięki któremu mamy finansowanie na naszą produkcję. Naszymi klientami są głównie miasta, gminy, związki powiatowe, powiaty i spółki komunalne, które realizują transport na terenie miast i gmin. Wszyscy ci klienci wymieniają obecnie tabor spalinowy na nowoczesny, ekologiczny, elektryczny. Oprócz rynku polskiego jesteśmy zainteresowani rynkiem europejskim. W zeszłym roku pokazywaliśmy nasze auto na targach w Grecji, w Salonikach, gdzie spotkał się z bardzo dużym zainteresowaniem z uwagi na jego małe wymiary, które były bardzo dobre i bardzo dobrze się sprawdzały na greckich, wąskich ulicach.
Usprawnieniu produkcji sprzyja niedawna przeprowadzka firmy do bydgoskiego parku przemysłowo-technologicznego, jednego z największych parków tego typu w Polsce. Dzięki temu spółka zyskała przestrzeń do rozbudowy działu produkcji, a także znakomity przyczółek do dalszej ekspansji.
ARP e-Vehicles to nie jest zwykła inwestycja. Jesteśmy dumni, że wspieramy projekt będący w pełni efektem polskiej myśli technologicznej i wytworem polskiego przemysłu. ARP e-Vehicles udowadnia, że polski kapitał i polska innowacyjność mają szansę konkurować jakością nawet na rynkach zagranicznych. Pierwszy polski autobus elektryczny produkowany w nowym bydgoskim zakładzie to także ważny krok w kierunku zrównoważonego rozwoju. Jest przyjazny nie tylko dla środowiska, ale przede wszystkim odpowiada lokalnym potrzebom. W Agencji Rozwoju Przemysłu chcemy, żeby zielony transport był łatwo dostępnym nie tylko w wielkich miastach, ale także w Polsce gminnej i powiatowej.
Wałbrzyska Specjalna Strefa Ekonomiczna Investpark to aż 3 województwa, 174 gminy i 29 powiatów. Od początku funkcjonowania siedzibą spółki jest Wałbrzych, drugie największe miasto na Dolnym Śląsku. Dolny Śląsk to jeden z najszybciej rozwijających się regionów w całej Europie. Zróżnicowana kulturowo i bogata przyrodniczo część kraju, której dynamiczny wzrost zapewniają branże automotive, logistyka, IT i nowe technologie. Południe Polski to także systematyczne inwestycje w infrastrukturę drogową i kolejową. Wielkopolskie. Lokacja najstarszych polskich miast. Region bogaty w złoża węgla brunatnego i gazu ziemnego. Ponad 3,5 miliona mieszkańców i prężnie działająca sieć instytucji otoczenia biznesu wspierają branżę spożywczą, chemiczną i budowlaną. Wielkopolską strefę gospodarczą wybrali liderzy rynku, w tym m.in. Volkswagen, Rawak, Dino i Flex Films. Opolskie. To zróżnicowany przemysł, wyjątkowa architektura i zabytkowe budownictwo. To region otwarty na innowacje i odnawialne źródła energii. Województwo napędza branża maszynowa i motoryzacyjna. To serce światowych potentatów. Mondelez, Mitsui High-Tech czy Umicore. Polska Strefa Inwestycji, w którą wpisuje się obszar zarządzany przez Wałbrzyską Specjalną Strefę Ekonomiczną, to pomoc publiczna, ulgi w podatku dochodowym i wsparcie dla inwestorów prywatnych. Intensywność pomocy publicznej na terenach zarządzanych przez Wałbrzyską Specjalną Strefę Ekonomiczną sięga od 20 do aż 60% w zależności od lokalizacji inwestycji. Investpark to jednak nie tylko przedsiębiorcy i miejsca pracy, ale także strategiczne przedsięwzięcia własne, w tym lokalne centra biznesu i hale przemysłowo-magazynowe w aż 6 atrakcyjnych lokalizacjach. Współpraca z nami to także kompleksowe doradztwo biznesowe, networking i wsparcie wymiany handlowej, nowoczesne centrum szkoleniowe, wspólna grupa zakupowa i inwestycje we wspólną przyszłość w ramach klastrów edukacyjnego, motoryzacyjnego i lotniczego. W Wałbrzyskiej Specjalnej Strefie Ekonomicznej bije serce najważniejszych światowych inwestycji. Investpark znajduje się na skrzyżowaniu strategicznych szlaków handlowych i komunikacyjnych. To najatrakcyjniejsza lokalizacja biznesowa wybierana zarówno przez polskich przedsiębiorców, jak i globalne marki. Strefa to optymalne położenie geopolityczne i lokalizacja atrakcyjna dla biznesu. To dogodne połączenia drogami ekspresowymi, rozbudowany system linii kolejowych i dostępność do międzynarodowych portów lotniczych. Wałbrzyska Specjalna Strefa Ekonomiczna. Od 25 lat wspólnie rozwijamy gospodarkę Polski i regionu.
Od ponad 30 lat edukujemy i wspieramy przedsięwzięcia ekologiczne na rzecz zielonej transformacji. Jesteśmy pełni zielonej energii i podajemy ją dalej. Naszym klientom dostarczamy nowoczesne rozwiązania finansowe oraz oferujemy doradztwo ekspertów. Zapewniamy narzędzia, by skutecznie mierzyć się z wyzwaniami klimatycznymi poprzez redukcję zużycia zasobów naturalnych czy wzrost zastosowania odnawialnych źródeł energii. Kredytowaliśmy dziesiątki tysięcy inwestycji proekologicznych o wartości powyżej 52 miliardów złotych. Projekty społeczne realizujemy poprzez programy Fundacji BOŚ oraz przy zaangażowaniu naszych pracowników w roli wolontariuszy. Dobra energia wraca, zielona także. Otrzymany w 2021 roku rating ESG plasuje nas w gronie 18% najlepiej ocenianych banków na świecie. Nasz zapał do zielonej transformacji nie maleje. Nieustannie szukamy nowych dróg rozwoju. Inwestujemy w zieloną przyszłość.